Japanese-style washika restaurant I sometimes go to. It is an old place with a wooden sign and a sliding door. Inside, the floor is covered with tatami, the tables are low, and the smell of grilled fish and dashi hangs in the air. The menu is fixed, with set meals of rice, miso soup, simmered vegetables, pickles, and fish. People in the neighborhood have spoken about the place for years. They say that if you stay there too late, unusual things begin to happen. I never believed it until one night I went there with my friend. It was close to closing time. The dining room was empty except for us. The waitress came to take our orders, bowed politely, and walked quickly down the corridor toward the kitchen. Her footsteps echoed unnaturally against the floor. While we waited, the light above our table flickered. We both looked up, then shrugged it off. A few minutes later, a clatter broke the silence. A pair of chopsticks had fallen onto the tatami from the table next to ours. The strange thing was that no one had been sitting there. Not long after, I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was light, like the touch of a waiter. I turned, but no one was there. When I looked forward again, the waitress was just then coming out of the kitchen, carrying our trays with both hands. We ate quietly. The food was the same as always, but the silence of the room pressed down on us. After the last orders were served, the kitchen lights went out. I heard the faint sound of pans being stacked, and then there was nothing. Suddenly a loud crash echoed from the kitchen. A pan had fallen to the floor. No one moved and no one spoke. The kitchen remained dark. When the waitress returned with the bill, she said nothing about it. She bowed as usual, but I noticed her hand shaking slightly. We paid quickly and left. As the sliding door closed behind us, the light above the entrance flickered once. Later I tried to learn more about the rumors. I discovered that about 50 years ago, the owner of the restaurant had a violent quarrel with his wife. He struck her, not realizing she was pregnant. The baby was lost. The woman's mind gave way after that. Sometime later, she killed him in the restaurant's kitchen. It is said that the man still lingers in the dining room, and the woman remains in the kitchen, waiting for the one who took her child. When I think back to the tap on my shoulder and the chopsticks falling from the empty table, I cannot help wondering which one of them it was. Perhaps it was the man? I was living in Okinawa, and already aware of its rich history and hauntings. I lived off base in the top level of a two-story house near the ocean. There are a few little things that occurred, and I still don't know what to make of them, but what I'm about to tell you is still a mystery to me. I can't shake the experience I had, and not even sure if what I experienced actually happened. One night I woke up for no reason at all to a white man dressed in military garb lying right in between my husband and me. I'm not sure if he was wearing a US World War II or a Vietnam-era military uniform. I think it was World War II. When I awoke, I looked right at him, like I was simply supposed to. He was lying comfortably snug between us, with his feet crossed and hands strapped across his stomach in a very relaxed manner. He was half sitting up and slumped back against the headboard. Visually, he was whitish-grayish in color and wasn't transparent. The most odd thing was he was looking down at me with these dark eyes, and I could see the whites of his eyes. His eyes were beautiful, and he looked to be somewhat handsome. As he stared at me, and I stared at him, he looked kind of scared. It's like he was resting, and I woke him up, and he didn't know what to think. He stared at me for the longest time. He never blinked his eyes, just kept staring in my eyes. I stayed in the same position when I woke up to raise my head and look at him, and I blinked my eyes over and over. Every time I opened them, I saw his eyes still staring at me. I was telling myself I was dreaming, and this vision will go away any minute now. After about a minute long of this vision I was seeing slowly disappeared, and the headboard became more visible. I then told myself that I was just seeing this because I was still dreaming with my eyes open, and fell back asleep. This happened again to me about a month later. Only this time it was a black man wearing U.S. military Vietnam-era uniform. He was lying completely down with his head on a pillow, and his eyes were closed. I don't understand what I saw, and not sure if I actually woke up to these men, or was dreaming with my eyes open. Nothing like this has ever happened before. I wish someone could tell me they experienced the same thing while living in Okinawa. I'm currently studying overseas in Japan, visiting my relatives and all that jazz. They live 3 kilometers from the infamous suicide forest. To make sense of this story, I'd probably have to go back to 4 days earlier. My grandmother had been insisting on my visit for a long time because I'm in the country. At first I wasn't too keen on it, but I thought why not, and finally went. I had to wait for break though, so it took a while. Fast forward to actually arriving at her house. My grandmother had already contacted my mother about the matter of staying with her. It was fine. Now I'm going to tell you here and now that I'm a little bit skeptical about the existence of the paranormal. I've watched ghost adventures, ghost hunters, etc. I'm not all that religious either. I can never sit still in church, and the only time that I can remember myself going was when I was 10 years old. My aunt had told me they would have food. She lied. I think there might be a higher power, but I'm not sure. However, what I'm experiencing is convincing me otherwise about the existence of the paranormal. Now let's get back to the original subject. Upon entering the house, I noticed immediately that A, it was hella small as my friends call it, and B, there was a sudden feeling of extreme cold on my chest, like somebody took super cold ice and stuck it there. I asked my grandmother if they had an AC or a fan going, but she said no. I brushed it off as just imagination. My grandmother's house has been around for God knows how long. It's old enough for people to actually see signs of wear in some places. The inside is the modern 1 living room, 2 bathrooms, 2 bedrooms plus a guest room, and a small backyard. Upstairs is the guest room that overlooks the backyard. One of the bathrooms is also upstairs. I mostly stayed in the house and explored the backyard, which has an awesome Zen garden. I got to watch NHK with English subtitles. It's a Japanese TV channel. Google it. There were no incidents the first day other than that ice-cold feeling in the middle of my chest. I got the bedroom upstairs, which was above my grandparents' room. It was a traditional room with the tatami mats and sliding door that separate the room into halves. The first half of the room is the one you see when you walk in through the door. There are shelves with manga, anime, music, sandals, a small umbrella, etc. The second half after you open the sliding door is where the flatbed thingy on the floor is, and the window straight ahead overlooking the garden. I stooped to put my possessions in the bottom shelf when I was in the first half of the room. When I stood back up, I felt a weird heavy sensation in my chest, the kind you get when you fall really fast towards something. I began to get dizzy and actually fell to my hands and knees. There were spots in my vision. As soon as it began, it stopped. I was about to get up while wondering what brought that on when the same cold sensation from earlier hit my chest, but much harder. I also felt cold around my neck and couldn't breathe. I was terrified and wanted to get help, but I couldn't get a word out. This lasted for 30 seconds, but it felt much longer than that. As soon as I got my breath back, I rushed downstairs to tell my grandmother. She asked if I had health problems prior to the incident. Of course I said no, because I'm a healthy person and I hardly get sick. She told me to sit down in the kitchen as she went to make tea. It tasted nasty. She told me it would help with my being ill. I was scared to go back upstairs, but she said I had probably been dehydrated and might have caught something. The rest of the night went without anything happening. The second day, nothing happened as well. But in the night, I thought I heard a woman talking near the window. It was a gentle voice, but there was a note of guilt in it. It sounded she was apologizing and that the apology was directed at me. I could feel someone there as well, but I thought I was just being paranoid. Until that same cold feeling in my chest came when the voice and presence started. I put the blanket over my head and eventually went to sleep. Which all leads to now. I haven't been able to get much sleep. Grandmother thinks I'm sick. She even told me today that I look like an Arachima raccoon due to the dark circles under my eyes. The sensations are still happening at night. I was hesitant to share my story, but my friends encouraged me, so I'm giving it a shot. I've started having it dream over and over again as well. It has a reoccurring pattern. The dream usually happens right after I can't stay awake any longer and fall asleep. I end up in a forest in broad daylight with thick fog. There's a dirt path that leads to a cliff. I'm probably on a mountain. I don't know, because once I come out the forest there's no detours and a sheer drop 2.5 feet in front of me where the dirt path ends. I can't see anything in the distance. I can't go back the way I came. There's grass everywhere. That's when a falling woman comes out of nowhere and falls past the rocky edge of the cliff with her arm outstretched like she's trying to catch herself on said edge. She always misses. That was the first time, but now every time she comes falling down, an overwhelming urge to catch her takes me over. I run for the edge of the cliff only for my hand to merely brush hers and miss. Sometimes I'll hear a splash of water way far down and everything becomes icy, just unbearably cold. I can't see the water. But when the splash is heard at times, it feels like my whole body is drenched in ice water and I can't breathe. Like I'm drowning. I told my grandmother and at first she didn't believe me. Until last night. I actually caught the falling woman in my dream. When I caught her wrist and she took hold of mine, excruciating pain was in my shoulder and wrist, like I caught something heavy with one arm. She had a really tight grip. She looked to be 20 years old. She had long brown hair, brown eyes, and she wore a dirty white dress that looked like it went through mud. Her skin was a bit tan but also pale. She had streaks of mud on her face. The woman said the same thing that the lady by the window did. I'm sorry. To be honest, it scared me. I woke up today with a red hand mark around my wrist and my shoulder felt dislocated. My grandmother doesn't really know what to do, but she's researching. I can't sleep because I'm scared of the dream. I don't stay upstairs by myself. I completely avoid it during the day and I stay up as much as I can despite being so tired. I just don't want to go to sleep. I still get the sensations in my chest and around my neck, but they're less intense, strangely gentle in some instances. I can still feel her presence. I don't know what she wants. I need help. The year was 1978 and I was 15 years old. My best friend had returned to Japan after spending a year attending our junior high school in the States while her father was a visiting professor at the local university. I missed her terribly after she had gone and was able to persuade my grandfather to send me to Japan to visit her during the coming summer. I arrived on a July evening, completely exhausted, of course, yet terribly excited. My friend and her mother showed me to my room, which was the only traditional Japanese room in the home, one with tatami matting and sliding doors. This is a feature common to fairly affluent homes in Japan. Modern construction and conveniences for the majority of the house, with one traditionally Japanese room. I recall that when her mother opened the corner closet to retrieve the futon mats that would be my bed, a cold chill emanated from it. I thought nothing of it. Of course, an enclosed space would be less affected by the ambient temperature of a room. I slept very soundly that first night. The following night after I had retired, I lay awake, listening to the sounds of the house as it was winding down for the evening. I heard light switches click off and bedroom doors upstairs closing. I was imagining what new adventures we might have tomorrow. I then began to hear a faint laughter. It seemed to be coming from, perhaps, the neighboring house. Perhaps there was a little get-together over there. Then the laughter became louder. Then the laughter became closer. Now the laughter was menacing. It was a decidedly evil man's laughter which now closed in around my ears, growing louder and louder. "Hey! Just get up and go upstairs and get your friend." I was wide awake. I tried to do just that only to find that I could not move, not a muscle. My instinct and unusual spiritual training for a young person kicked in. I had practiced yoga since I was a young child, and just before leaving, my yoga instructor had mentioned something about an East Indian holy man named Ramana. The mere mention of his name dispelled negative energies. I tried to say his name aloud. I was ready to try anything. To my horror, I discovered that I could also not speak. Fear freezes, my instinct told me. What I have to do in the midst of this terror is to relax. I began to imagine myself floating through a starry night sky. A calm in the midst of the storm around me came over me. I tried to speak the name of the holy man again, and this time I was able to mouth the word, though still no sound came out, Ramana. As I did so, it was as if a switch had been turned off. The evil laughter which had become deafening about my ears stopped. I was able to move and considered running upstairs to my friend, yet, somehow, I knew that I was safe now, so I thought I would not wake her. The following day, a number of my friend's friends came by for a welcoming tea. I told the story of what had happened to me. "Oh, yes, that was kanashibari," they told me, quite matter-of-factly, which means wrapped in bandages. It was a common thing which occurs in Japan, whereby some spirit or another who happens to be roaming about decides to have a bit of fun with a resting human. They proceeded to tell me other tales of spirits, both playful and malevolent, who specialized in turning children around in their beds so that their head would be where their feet had been when they awoke. They were not surprised in the least by my experience and had no trouble believing that I had indeed been awake and that this was no dream. The entity was likely a demonic one, judging from my description, they said, and I imagine that anyone who heard that laughter would concur. The direction from whence the laughter had originated, I realized, had been the bedding closet which had exhibited the chilly draft the night before. I took from that experience the notion that calm in the presence of malevolent entities is a powerful strategy. Indeed, my later studies of martial arts would serve to underscore that conclusion. "Don't strike when you are angry," I once heard a Tibetan monk remark, "you might miss." Last year, me and my brother were fishing about 4 kilometers off the coast of Okinawa. It seemed like a good day to go fishing, fairly calm waters and lots of fish. This was the last day of my holiday in Japan. I flew back the next day, and I wanted to make it worth it. After about 3 hours, we had caught about 40 kilograms of fish, and it was starting to get dark. My brother told me to pull the ripcord on the motor, but it wouldn't budge. Then I heard a faint sound of a propeller engine, but dismissed it as a passing light aircraft like a Cessna or something like that. The sound got louder, and this transparent dark green plane with crimson circles under its wings passed over, accompanied by a cold wind that sent a chill throughout my body. The plane then banked left and hit the water. My brother pulled the motor cord, and the engine miraculously came back to life. He then steered the boat to the supposed crash site. There was nothing there except a large ray swimming near the surface. Then this weird whispering started. It sounded like Japanese, but I wasn't sure. I was worried. I had never had any experiences with the paranormal before, so I didn't know what to do. And that's when the boat's outboard motor stopped and the whispering started to sound hostile. My brother and I were terrified. It sounded like they did not want us here. Then, without warning, the motor roared to life, and we managed to get the boat back to land without any further issues. I am still very scared about this experience and haven't had any issues since. I have found out that a suicide plane was shot down in 1945, and its ghost is believed to appear on the anniversary of the crash.